So we all agree NaNoWriMo is dead, right? Regardless of that, I really like the tradition of setting aside 1 or 2 months of the year just for intense writing. And I want to keep doing that because I found it really helps me personally just to get into that groove. And usually I can ride that high for a few months afterwards. So I want to do that again, just without associating with NaNoWriMo, obviously. Issue is, there are 2 weeks left until November, and I don't know what I'm gonna write. I have several ideas in mind, but there is one specific concept that has really tickled my mind in that particular way. So I think I'm gonna try going with that. However, it's kind of complicated, and I don't think 2 weeks is enough time for me to plan it out properly. So I don't know. I'm gonna try anyway, just to get some sort of plan and to be able to at least start. But it's gonna take way more planning. And that is because it's heavily inspired by Baltic mythology, and I am not as familiar with it as I need to be to write a whole story about it. So I need to do a lot of research, which is gonna take a lot of time. I got this book from the library the other day because this is the kind of research that is supposed to be from books rather than the internet. I've tried the internet, there is too little on there, so I need to go read actual books about the subject. And here it's just an overview of like the old Baltic ways of life. And I'm gonna get more books after I finish this one. It's gonna be fun, I'm excited. So this video is just gonna be me documenting my process of brainstorming a whole new idea, which requires a lot of research. And I usually, oh my god, when I write fantasy, I try to come up with most things myself so that I wouldn't have to do tons of research on, a subject. I still do, obviously, but it's just, I don't know, I prefer to make shit up. But this time I want to write about my culture, and so I need to actually know enough about my culture to do that. Yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing. Okay, I had to stop for a second because this feels... I'm reading this and it feels like world building for a fake culture. I'm just on the first part, right? But essentially, like the land here, in the west, we have the sea. And, those are the lowlands. And the more eastern you go, the lands kept getting higher. So we have the lowlands in the west, the midlands in the middle, and the highlands in the east, right? Like, I knew they were culturally different, like these regions. There are more regions than that, but, just broadly speaking. But I thought, like, the lowlands and the highlands, that they were just called that because one was low, the other was high, and whatever. But apparently, it extended farther. For example, and there is an image here. So, for example, when they buried their dead in the lowlands, they buried them under the ground. And in the highlands, they buried them above the ground in like little mounds. And from west to east, like the burials just kept going like this. Like, there's this little illustration here, And I'm like, what? Why? Why did they in the lowlands bury their dead low and in the highlands high? Like, that feels fake, you know what I mean? But it doesn't stop here. So, for example, their crosses at the graves were very short in the lowlands, and the more east you went, the higher they were. furnaces, right, in the house. In the lowlands, they were very low to the ground, maybe even in the ground. And the more east you went, the higher they were. Like, why? Why? Like, why are people living in the lowlands? Did everything lower than the people living in the highlands? This feels fake. Do you understand what I mean? Or am I crazy? Okay, so the thing is, I fucking suck at plotting. World building and character creation, that shit is so easy for me. Like, I can do it in my sleep. And I often do it in my sleep. But fucking plot, I don't know. Like, okay, I have the conflict. I have the character motivations, I have the goals, I have like the stakes, everything. But that does not a plot make. Like, if you were to ask me, okay, point by point, like, how does the story go? Like, what actually happens? I'll make it, but that is the hardest part for me when it comes to making a story. Just like, I can make everything except the fucking plot beats. I guess I'll have to do what I always do and just start writing and see where it takes me and hope that something happens in my brain. Like, I'll just need to really sit down and really think. I don't know. I feel like I can only get so far just by brainstorming and just by thinking. Like, I need to also write. I need to also start getting ideas out on the page, and then my brain will kind of realize that, oh, we're creating now. Okay, I need to create. It's not the best idea to go into a story without a clear plan of what's supposed to happen, but that usually works out for me, so... Because I do have the characters. I do have their personalities in mind, you know, have their motivations, their goals, like what they're about, whatever. And I really want to kind of play around with them, see of like, okay, so who are you as people? Like, actually, how are you gonna impact the story? How are you gonna make the story, actually? I just need to start. This is also gonna have like 2 pretty separate storylines, so I'm not really writing a novel. I'm gonna be writing 2 novellas in one. So it's gonna be very long, but each storyline can't be very long because, no, it's 2. God, I had a talk with my dad the other day, and he pointed out the obvious that, like, Baltic mythology doesn't have credible sources. And I'm here like, okay, good. That means I can fuck around and no one can accuse me of being inaccurate. Like, it is very true that there are a million sources for the same thing. And, like, how can you choose which one's credible? So I'm just gonna have my own headcanons. It's gonna be based on, it's not gonna be about, it's gonna be based on. The other issue is that I think this is gonna have to be a bit of a political fantasy too. Which I do like reading, but I've never tried it myself and I'm a bit scared. But I think I'm gonna have to figure out how to do it because there's gonna be some politics. Okay, I'm gonna spend the next few days finalizing my brainstorming before I actually start writing, so yeah. Okay, so today it's Monday the 28th of October. So we have, I don't know, technically a couple of days still until November, but I don't know, there's this event going on that's hosted by RevBit, Revise Resub, kind of subreddit, and it starts from today, and I haven't done anything, so for me, it's from November, okay? Like, I'm doing November and December, right? And I don't know, I think I'm pretty happy with where I am right now, like, brainstorming-wise, kind of planning-wise. I do have, like, the first act. So I have the wider conflicts, I have the subplots, and I don't know, I just don't know how it's gonna end yet. And that's kind of what I need to figure out. Like, I know the kind of questions I need to answer, essentially. So look, I know what needs to happen. I just need to figure out how it's gonna happen, right? It's fine, like, I need to trust in myself. So it's like, I feel like other writers should be able to relate to this. Whenever you start a new project, suddenly you're kind of like, do I remember how to do this? Do I remember how to plan? Do I remember how to write? Can I still do this? Or was my previous attempt a fluke? So I'm kind of experiencing that now. I have to convince myself that, no, it's fine, I'll figure it out. Like, I didn't know the ending to my previous story in 2 weeks also, so... Or maybe I did, actually. I think that may have been one of the first things Anyway, point is, it's fine. So yeah. Moving on to my goals for November and December. I don't think it's reasonable for me to plan for the traditional 50,000 words because I can't draft that fast. I can revise that fast. Like, if I already have the first draft and I'm writing the second draft, then I can put in like 2,000 words per day, you know, like that's fine. But when I'm writing the first draft, it's just not gonna happen. So I think I'm gonna have my goal like half of what the original goal is, right? The 50,000. Or maybe if I'm doing 2 months, it's just 50,000 words in 2 months. Okay, yeah, let's put it like that. So yeah, my plan is 50,000 words in 2 months. So by next year. I think that's fine. I think that's manageable. Yeah. Like, I don't know, I see people being like, oh, I drafted, like, my first draft in, like, 3 months. And I'm like... But then I'm like, okay, their first drafts are usually, like, 80,000 words or something. And maybe I could do that, too, in 3 months. But my first draft of my first story was 150,000. So that took me more than 3 months, guys. And with this one, I'm like, I wanted to do a standalone. Like, I want to do a standalone fantasy. But already I'm like, God, I already walked into this trap with my last story where I really tried to push it to be a standalone. And then halfway through the first draft of, like, assuming it's a standalone, I realized it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. And I had to do a lot of revising, a lot of replanning, rewriting. It's just unnecessary, right? It's just so... Here I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a duology. Again, it's too big. Like, the conflicts are too big. And I'm also doing 2 stories in one. So... And each is like a novel's length on its own. So naturally, you gotta have 2 novels then, so... Okay, to give a very quick pitch of what I'm writing, just so y'all know what I'm talking about, kind of, when I talk more about this in the future. I'm calling it Project Dimension Swap, because that's what's happened. That's what happens, right? That's what happens. So essentially, we have the same character in 2 different realities, right? In version 1, I'm calling it version 1 and version 2. So in version 1, the main character is a nomad traveling through war-ravaged lands in search of her lost daughter. And she has a fate child with her, right? So she's just kind of like, there's war going on around her. And she's kind of like, I don't care. Like, my child is missing and I need to find her and exchange her for this fate child. So that's kind of like her thing. She's like, whatever. Everything else not my fucking problem, right? And in version 2, she is the Grand Duchess of the land. So she had united the lands and is like trying to like make peace with her neighbors. I'm not gonna say why yet, but it is very important for her to finish these peace treaties before a certain time. And so in version 1, she dies from an infection. At the same time as in version 2, she is assassinated. So instead of them both dying, their souls kind of switch places. So version 1 wakes up in version 2, and version 2 wakes up in version 1. And they're both kind of like, okay, wait, this is kind of fucked, what the hell? So just kind of, that's the pitch, that's, you know, the premise. So that's what I'm working with. It's gonna be like, inspired by, like vaguely inspired by Baltic mythology. And I say vaguely because there are a million different sources for it, so there is no one glossary of everything Baltic mythology. So it's just gonna be inspired by. And like the time period, it's gonna be like 17th century-esque. I hesitate to say Eastern Europe. Like, I'll say Eastern Europe, but I hesitate to say it because I don't want to create the image that, oh, so you're just writing about the wars that were happening there at the time. And I'm like, I'm not. It may seem that way from the way I describe it, but I'm not, okay? Only the country that this is taking place in is inspired by my country. But the foreign policies are gonna be different, and the foreign countries are not gonna be based on actual Eastern Europe countries. I just don't want to step on any toes is the thing. Like, okay, like we had historically issues with a lot of people, and I'm like, I'm not doing a historical novel here, okay? So don't, I'm not, okay? Just putting it out there now. So it's just a fantasy land where the main country is loosely based on the history of my country. And that is it. That is it. Okay? Sorry. I really needed to emphasize that point. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of what I'm planning on doing. I need to get more books from the library. I need to do more research. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time when I give a bit of an update on my drafting process. Because I do want to try making writing logs, just to keep myself accountable more than anything. So I don't know if I can do them weekly, but if not, it would be bi-monthly. So yeah, if you wanna see that, I guess, like, share, subscribe, or whatever, I don't know. And I will see you next time. Bye.